Hello, and welcome to the California Public Utilities Commission's Broadband Casework training video series. This is one of a series of short videos designed to introduce critical concepts related to broadband deployment and infrastructure. This particular short video will briefly discuss the factors of churn. Churn, the rate at which customers cancel or do not renew a broadband subscription over a given period of time. So what is churn? Churn is a number that is expressed as a percentage that describes the percentage of active customers in a given segment, perhaps residential or business or enterprise, who choose not to renew their subscription to that broadband service in a given period. Churn is usually described on a monthly basis, but then also summed up and aggregated on an annual basis. And churn is a pretty important matter for a broadband operator because it is a very significant cost. It is an expense that is quantified in the financial statements of a broadband operator. And it's particularly costly because every customer that a broadband operator is able to bring on represents a cost. There is an investment in acquiring that customer through marketing, through the sales process, through providing incentives to become a customer, and so on. And when one loses that customer, recovering the cost of acquiring them in the first place is then eliminated or diminished. In addition, for any customer on the broadband network, there has been a cost to install the service drop to the premises of the customer, as well as customer premises equipment at that customer's location. And those are sunk costs. When the customer leaves the network as an active subscriber and revenue source, those costs can no longer be recovered. So churn is a costly matter and a very important consideration for any broadband operator. Importantly, noting that churn is really a function of alternatives is significant. Churn is all about whether there are other options that a customer has available such that they can walk away from their existing service provider. In markets where there is no competition, there is considerably less churn. But inevitably, in the current moment where some variation on competition is provided by entities like mobile operators, satellite, and otherwise, churn is a consideration for almost any broadband service provider. And it really comes down to the satisfaction of the customer across a range of different metrics, including pricing, quality of service, customer service, billing challenges, and so on. Generally in the fiber industry, it's important to note that churn is different in the business market than it is in the residential market. The averages in the fiber to the premises industry for business customers will be less than 10% per year. For residential customers, it is higher. And on non-fiber networks, it can be considerably higher than on fiber networks. And this might have to do with the quality of customer service and the quality of service generally, just in that most internet service providers pay considerably more attention to their business customers than they do their residential customers. And the net result of that is a level of dissatisfaction among residential customers who are more likely to switch to other providers where and if they have the option. Churn is something that is addressed by incumbent providers through a range of tools that, quite frankly, are not available to small competitive providers like many of those who are owned by municipal, community, or tribal ISPs. The way that incumbents address churn, trying to keep customers on their network rather than losing them and having to go out and try to bring them back as new customers, which, by the way, is much more costly than keeping the customer in the first place. The ways in which those incumbents address churn is through tools such as using promotional pricing to stop customers from leaving. So thus, customer service representatives are frequently empowered when someone calls to cancel service, that customer service representative can offer special pricing, special deals, special kinds of incentives, such as free streaming services, reductions in aggregated costs for multi-package bundles or multi-product bundles of services, and so on. And then in addition, particularly for businesses, incumbents will use multi-year contracts to try to address churn. So specific pricing based on a 2-year, 3-year, or even longer contract into which the customer is locked in, thus eliminating the chances of churn and creating a much more attractive business relationship for the incumbent. Even if the pricing is somewhat lower, the guaranteed and predictable revenue over a multi-year period of time is very attractive. Now, small providers such as municipal, county, tribal, and community providers are not able to use many of those same tools. Multi-year contracts may not be available because those community-based providers are offering differentiated products that look different to what the incumbents have, and not locking customers into multi-year contracts is part of that. And frankly, smaller providers do not have the kind of flexibility around pricing and incentives that incumbents do, largely because they simply don't have scale or the range of products. An example of that would be a small local provider does not also own a streaming service in the way that, for example, Comcast owns Peacock. Comcast is in a position to offer Peacock as a free product because of the internal synergies of being a very large company with that wide range of product offerings. A small local company simply doesn't have that. In our observation, however, the significant and most important tool that small local companies, whether privately owned or publicly owned, community owned, that those small local companies have in addressing churn and frankly competing against other entities is customer service. Customer service is the most singular tool in the toolkit for a small company for retaining customers and keeping customer satisfaction very high. And local customer service, in which small local companies have a structural advantage in their cultures, in their hiring, in their smaller scale, which is a plus for customer service because of the intimacy and the personalization of customer service. That is the single most powerful tool, and well worth both investment and significant consideration. That is the end of this brief video in this series of brief videos about broadband deployment and infrastructure, and we look forward to seeing you on some of our other videos.